Hello, good evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Welcome to Monday's edition of North West Tonight. Thank you for joining us. Our top story: bullied and victimised. A doctor describes senior managers' reactions to complaints about the baby killer, Lucy Letby. The Thirlwall inquiry today also heard bosses at the Countess of Chester Hospital wanted concerned colleagues to shut up. Also tonight, a year on from October the 7th, we'll hear from both sides of a conflict which continues to deepen. Anger in a Cheshire community. Their village is left isolated after its last bus service is scrapped.
I can't get out unless I manage to get somebody to pick me up, so I'm stuck in the house.
Back after 70 years, Donald Campbell's record-breaking hydroplane returns to the Samlesbury factory where she was built.
And it turned out to be a lovely start to the week. Some parts of the region got 19 degrees today, a pleasant start. Will it last? Join me at the end of the programme. I'll give you all the details.
A doctor who became friends with Lucy Letby at the same time that she was killing and attacking babies told the public inquiry into her crimes today that he felt misled and manipulated by her. He regretted discussing cases with her and encouraging her to file a grievance against his own colleagues at the Countess of Chester Hospital, where, as you know, Letby murdered 7 babies and tried to kill 7 others. From the Thirlwall inquiry in Liverpool, listening to today's evidence, here's Johnny Humphreys.
Dr Yu, a senior registrar at the Countess of Chester Hospital, was a friend of Lucy Letby and shared more than 1,300 Facebook messages with her at all times of day and night. Now, Dr Yu told the inquiry at Liverpool Town Hall today how he heard that she had mental health problems and struggled to sleep at night due to anxiety and worry, so he wanted to be supportive to the young nurse. However, he said with hindsight he felt he'd been misled and manipulated, and he'd reflected on that period every day for the last 7 or 8 years. Rachel Langdale KC, who's counsel to the inquiry, asked the doctor about sensitive information he passed to Letby in those messages, including about some of the babies who died, and that included child N, who died in June 2016. Miss Langdale asked how he thought child N's parents would feel hearing that he discussed their child's case with Letby. He said, "I'm sure they're very upset." Miss Langdale also pressed him on why he had supported Letby when she discussed taking out a grievance against some of the doctors, some of the consultants on the unit who suspected her of involvement in the deaths of some of the babies. Dr Yu conceded that that had been a massive mistake. The inquiry also heard how in 2017, Dr Yu had pressed for Letby to be permitted to observe at Alder Hey Children's Hospital, where he worked at the time, to help with her professional development. This was between the periods she was removed from frontline clinical duties at the Countess of Chester Hospital in June 2016, but before she was arrested by Cheshire Police in 2018. He accepted that he did not tell doctors at Alder Hey Children's Hospital that Letby had been removed from frontline clinical duties in Chester, but said he believed he had the backing of senior executives at the Chester Hospital when asking for Letby to be permitted to go to Alder Hey. The inquiry today also heard from another consultant paediatrician, Dr Zede, who's also been anonymised by a court order. She told the inquiry she felt senior executives in Chester wanted us to shut up and actively bullied and victimised consultants on the unit when they raised their suspicions about what Letby was doing. The inquiry continues. Johnny Humphreys, BBC North West Tonight.
Next tonight, events and services have been taking place across the North West today to mark a year since the October the 7th attacks by Hamas in Israel and the start of the conflict in Gaza. The conflict, of course, which has had a profound effect on the Jewish and Muslim communities here and around the world. Andy Gill's been speaking to people from both communities to gauge what they think a year on.
At the weekend, a march in Preston in support of Palestinians and a rally in Manchester to support Israel. We spoke to Rafi Bloom of the North West Friends of Israel and to Ismail Tellon, who runs a pro-Palestinian campaign group in Preston. Looking back a year, what were their first reactions to October the 7th?
An incredible sense of shock, of dread, of fear, horror, and just disbelief.
Ismail doesn't condone what Hamas did on October the 7th, but says people have to understand that many Palestinians felt oppressed and forgotten about.
The people in Gaza decided that, people are forgetting about us and we need to act in the way that they did. Not that I'm trying to condone anything that happened.
Rafi says since October the 7th, anti-Semitic incidents have increased across the UK. How are people in the Jewish community in Manchester, the wider Northwest, how are they feeling now?
Well, clearly it makes us afraid. It makes us angry. You can have a view on the conflict in the Middle East, but it should not be imported onto the streets of Britain. It also, from my perspective, makes us even more determined to stand up to it. You know, we are proud Jewish Mancunians.
How has what's happened over the past year affected the Muslim community in Preston and the Northwest?
I think Muslims maybe have become more practicing, becoming more closer to God, turning to God to help the Palestinians for what they're going through, because obviously as Muslims we believe in the oneness of God, and our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of God, and whenever we find any kind of difficulties, we always turn to God.
Do you think the Israeli response to what happened on October the 7th has been proportionate?
Absolutely not. It's been the most disproportionate response, massacre, annihilation, you can call it a number of things, because it's been so indiscriminate.
Do you think the Israeli Defence Force response in Gaza has been proportionate?
I think the IDF has found itself fighting in the most complex urban environment any Western military has ever had to face, on a battlefield that Hamas took 17 years to prepare, both underground and above ground. And I think absolutely the response has been proportionate.
How has the interfaith dialogue that you may have had with the Muslim community in the Northwest, how has that been affected by October the 7th?
On October the 7th, decades of interfaith work disappeared overnight. And I'm not just talking about this from my own experience, the chief rabbi has said this. All of a sudden, relationships dissipated.
Ismail says the Jewish population in Preston is much smaller than Manchester's, but there is still contact.
Some representatives from the Jewish faith came to Preston, and one of the mosques in Preston hosted them, and just to see, what kind of dialogue can be what kind of dialogue can be done between the two faiths.
Rafi would support the two-state solution to the Middle East when conditions are right. Ismail would prefer a one-state solution where Jews, Muslims and others live in peace. Andy Gill, BBC Northwest Tonight.
Now, coming up before 7 o'clock, Kay will have the weather for us, and Richard will round up a busy weekend of sport. But first, let's take a look at some of the main stories. And Liverpool's specialist baby hospice, Zoe's Place, has announced that it will close at the end of the year. Its lease expires in 9 months, and trustees say there isn't enough time or money to relocate to a new home. A prisoner from HMP Forest Bank in Pendlebury in Greater Manchester is believed to have escaped while being treated at Salford Royal Hospital. Sodexo, which runs the prison, says it is working closely with Greater Manchester Police. Reform UK says it will launch a private prosecution against the men at the centre of a disturbance at Manchester Airport in July. That is, if the Crown Prosecution Service doesn't charge them. The CPS says that it is still reviewing material while inquiries into the incident continue. Now, a young mum from Cheshire is urging people, all of us, to go for regular eye tests. That as she prepares for surgery this week to remove a tumour from behind her eye. Jenny Hayes, who works as a midwife, she's from Macclesfield, was diagnosed after a routine optician's appointment just 6 weeks ago. Phil Chapman has this report.
As a 30-year-old mum to 2 young children, Willow and Chester, Jenny didn't expect to be writing her will and starting a social media channel called Brain Tumour at 30. Until just 6 weeks ago, she was unaware of the growing tumour. Then a visit to the optician prompted a referral, which revealed devastating news and the urgent need for surgery.
I think I was overdue for an eye test by about a year, and they saw swelling behind my eyes, referred me straight to the hospital. So this was a Friday, they saw me the Monday, ophthalmology did, and then they referred me straight to medics in A&E, had a CT scan, had an MRI scan, which showed this really large brain tumour, frontal lobe brain tumour. Yeah, open brain surgery, it's a craniotomy to remove, they hope, 80 to 90% of the tumour. And then we'll start chemo and radio on what's left. So some of it's a part in my brain that they think they're going to have to leave.
It was Jenny's optometrist, Ikra, who first spotted the abnormalities.
It's important to get your eyes tested every 2 years, not always just about your vision, it's also about the healthcare as well, so that the eye health. And Jenny had an OCT scan, it also had a good thorough checks of the back of the eyes as well, and we found that there were some abnormalities that needed to obviously be referred on to the hospital emergency.
And Jenny's friends and family have been helping her get through it with moral support and with the help of a GoFundMe page to support her young family.
It was a natural thing that everyone wanted to rally round, and I think she's just one of those personalities that naturally wants to give back and do more, and I know I wouldn't be where I am today without her, so it's a natural thing that we instantly wanted to jump in and support her any way that we can.
Now Jenny's hoping for the best, but having to prepare for the worst, as she bravely talks about in her regular blog, sharing her story before her surgery at Salford Royal Hospital this week.
So I applied through Macmillan for their free will writing service as I lay next to my sleeping Willow. So it felt a bit sad, but I won't need it, not just yet. It's not my time to go.
Phil Chapman, BBC North West Tonight, Macclesfield.
And we wish Jenny all the very best with her operation this week, and we'll let you know how she gets on, fingers crossed. Now, for many people in many places, bus services are an essential part of daily life. In some places, of course, there have been big changes to the way in which buses are run. And we're all being encouraged, of course, to use public transport more to help the environment. However, in many areas around the northwest, the number of bus journeys has fallen. Statistics show that it's down across the region by more than half since 1992. That, of course, was a few years after private companies took control of buses everywhere outside London. In the same period, in London, bus journeys have gone up by 20%. The figures locally vary quite a bit. In the last decade, journeys in Merseyside down 28%, Warrington's seen a fall of 57%, and it's down 59% in Cheshire East. Last year, as you will know, Greater Manchester took its bus services back under its own control under the local devolution deal. The Liverpool City region is now going to follow suit. And last month, the government said that new laws would allow all councils to do the same. However, what happens when the only bus services in an area are cancelled? That's what's happened to the village of Audlem in South Cheshire. People there say it's affecting jobs, education and causing social isolation, as our Cheshire political reporter Kaylee Watterson explains.
There's lots to like about living in Audlem.
A really good community, there's lots of events on and everybody looks after each other.
But there's one major issue in this picture-perfect Cheshire village.
It came as a shock because we had no notice, really. It was announced that there was no school bus, or any buses for that matter. You can't get into Crewe or Nantwich or Market Drayton. But also we have a lot of people that come from outside the village into Audlem, and those support our shops. So it's a real bad time for Audlem at the moment.
Some people say you wait for ages for a bus and then two come along at once. But here in this village, there are no buses serving it anymore. It's impacting people here of all ages. Eva has just turned 90.
I'm heartbroken as they've done what they've done, really.
How does it impact you in your life, the buses
Well, I
being
can't get out. Can't even get into Audlem unless I manage to get somebody to pick me up. Well, if they're working, they can't always do it. So I'm stuck in the house.
There's an on-demand bus service run by the council, but 16-year-old Rebecca says it's not reliable enough.
I missed an interview for a job I've been searching for, first interview in ages, and the go-to was just really, it didn't come on time and I missed it, so now I don't have a job.
Local politicians have concerns.
It's really important that rural areas don't get cut off. Of course, we need investment in public transport in urban areas, but it does sometimes feel like they're prioritised because of the density of population, but actually we're so dependent here.
The government wants to extend bus franchising to every area of England so councils can run their own services. But there's no indication of when that would start, how much it would cost and who would pay for it. Cheshire East Council say they'd be interested in taking over their buses.
Yes, we'd like to do that. We are getting more money into the bus services. We've been successful getting more funding from central government. The beauty of the franchise option is that we can look more long term.
But for people in the village, they say they're feeling cut off and now facing a 6-month wait for their next bus. Kaylee Watson, BBC North West Tonight, Aldlam.
Yeah, the problem of Aldlam and its lack of buses. Right, let's move on to sport. Richard is here. He's got news of this long-running battle between the Premier League and Manchester City, Rich. Yeah. It's taken another turn, but they're fighting on more than one front, so you maybe need to explain which one of the battles between Manchester City and the Premier League this actually is.
Yeah, it's not the big one, Roger. This is a ruling, not on the 115 charges that Manchester City face, but it was brought by City, this one, about sponsorship deals in particular, those from companies closely connected to clubs owners like Etihad Airways. City insists the rules are anti-competitive. Both sides are claiming victory, though. The Premier League says the tribunal rejected most of City's challenges. City point towards two key areas that were deemed to be unlawful. The case isn't directly related to the 115 charges, but does cover some of the same ground. We shall see. The future of Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag remains in the balance, with the club's hierarchy expected to meet tomorrow. It's understood it's been in the diary for some time.
I speak continue with them, and just after the game I have to do my job, talk with the players, manage the players. We always talk. Every week, I would say every day we talk.
Bolton Wanderers manager Ian Evatt is waiting to hear if he'll face further punishment from the Football Association after being sent off following his team's 2-2 draw with Shrewsbury in League One. Wanderers recovered from 2 goals down to salvage a point. An FA disciplinary process is underway. In League Two, only goal difference keeps Barrow off the top of the table after the Bluebirds battle back from a goal down at home to Cheltenham. Andrew Dallas's late goal, the winner for Stephen Clements' men. At the other end of the table, Accrington Stanley jumped above bottom side Morecambe. Dara Costello with both goals in a 2-1 victory. Wigan Warriors are just one win away from defending their Super League crown and making history. No other team has won all 4 major trophies in one season. A 38-0 victory against Leigh Leopards saw the Warriors book their place in Saturday's grand final. These are some of the pictures of the build-up at Old Trafford today, where they'll face Hull KR, who sneaked past Warrington Wolves. Should be a cracking final. Been a brilliant season for Saints, though, hasn't it? Many congratulations as well to Liverpool's Nick Ball, who defended his WBA featherweight world title at the M&S Bank Arena. Nick, who remains undefeated in 22 fights, stopped his American opponent Ronnie Rios in the 10th round in emphatic fashion, as you can see there. Nick showing once again that he is one of the very best featherweights in the world. Undefeated, Roger. He is some fighter, is Nick. He really is. He's going to go on to huge things, it looks like. And phenomenally strong. He's a featherweight, isn't he? But the speed of the hands and everything. Featherweight, yeah. And you could see with that, it was pretty emphatic, wasn't it? Yeah. And Erik ten Hag, it's, you know, we're sitting here talking about the future of someone's job and loads of speculation in the papers. It must be very difficult for him, you know, when people are talking so openly. Very difficult, Roger, yeah. As you could hear there, he insists that, you know, he communicates well with the owners and so on, but they are meeting tomorrow. They say it's been in the diary for a while, but obviously his future, Thomas Tuchel's been mentioned as a possible replacement, will be top of that list. Is it the international break now? Are we into yes, that? That's right. Yeah, OK. Yeah. Right. Rich, thank you, as always, very much indeed. Comprehensive roundup from Richard. We're going to stay with a kind of a sporting theme, I suppose. We're talking about Bluebird. It's 7 months, powerboat, of course. She finally returned to Coniston back at the start of the year. And Donald Campbell's record-breaking hydroplane, Bluebird K7, has now been on a 5-day road trip, actually. I think we told you last Thursday when she was moved out of the Ruskin Museum in Coniston. She went off down the motorways, visited the Royal Motor Yacht Club in Dorset, also the National Motor Museum in Bewley, which is where Campbell's CN7, the car, is housed. So the both of them were at the same place at the same time over the weekend. But on her way back north today, back home to her permanent base at the Ruskin Museum, Bluebird stopped off for a very special and poignant engagement at Samlesbury Hall. That's where she was built 70 years ago this year, as Phil Cunliffe reports.
Though on that perfect first run, there was no hint of tragedy.
While Coniston will always be Bluebird K7's spiritual home, Samlesbury in Lancashire is where the story begins, where the legend was born. And the chance to see the hydroplane close up today drew the crowds once again.
I just wanted to come and obviously have a look at her and see what she looked like and everything, and pay respects, really.
Amazing piece of machinery and such an inspiring sort of achievement to have gone for that, and to actually to see it on its way home is fantastic.
Bluebird was built by Samlesbury Engineering in a hangar in the grounds of historic Samlesbury Hall. It was finished in 1954, then handed over to Donald Campbell. David, a welder, worked on the boat's steel-framed aluminium body.
It had a lot of copper in the metal, made it very difficult to weld with the techniques that we had. You started welding at one end and take the panel up and then start welding it, and it used to crack behind you.
Did you get to meet Donald Campbell?
We did. Donald Campbell kindly took us over to the halfway house and bought us all a drink, which was very good of him. I'm probably one of the few people who was fortunate enough to work on it. They've probably sadly departed now, a lot of them.
Samlesbury Engineering closed in 1960 and all its buildings demolished. Only photos remain, like those Hazel had brought of her dad Bob, a tinsmith.
Dad helped as part of the team that built Bluebird when it was Samlesbury Aerodrome. And then my husband and I both worked at Samlesbury for British Aerospace, so we've done the full circle now.
That's her father, Bob Knowles, second from the right.
All with their white coats on?
Yes. All with the white coats on.
And what was it like working with Donald Campbell? Did he talk about it?
No, not really. It was just, it was his job. So he never thought anything about it, I don't think. He used to go and watch him on his runs on Coniston.
Just 7 months after leaving Samlesbury, Campbell's Bluebird would break the first of his 7 world water speed records. He would die 13 years later, trying to break an 8th. It helps explain the allure and the romance. But for his family, today was all about the nuts, bolts and rivets. Bluebird, the machine, 70 years on.
This is all about celebrating British engineering and technology of its day.
Yes, she's been down south, but do you know what? I live in Lancashire and I'm very proud to live in Lancashire, and I'm proud that she's a Lancashire boat.
Phil Cunliffe, BBC North West Tonight, Samlesbury.
Apparently she had thousands of people queuing up to see her where she was down south at the weekend. She's back in the Ruskin Museum if you're up in Coniston from tomorrow morning if you want to go and see Bluebird K7. Speaking of Ks...
Oh, nice.
I just thought of that.
I love that.
Here she is.
Here I am.
Now, you've got a couple of really nice weather photos, so tell us all about them.
I've always got some good weather pictures. Hey, thank you for sending them in. Let's start off in Belmont in Lancashire, because it's here this morning. We saw cloudy, murky skies. We had some outbreaks of rain. It brightened up really quite nicely. We've ended up with gorgeous spells of sunshine and sunsets, perhaps akin to the one that Graham sent in 1984. Yes, he sent this picture in 1984 on a slide, because that is how you used to send in your Weather Watch pictures. It's finally made it. Graham, thank you so much. I loved seeing that photo. Please do keep those photos coming in. If you want to, follow me on socials, or better yet, become a BBC Weather Watcher and let me know what it's like in your part of the world. So, I mentioned it was cloudy, then we ended up being a really lovely sunny end to the day. We got 19 degrees in Formby today, so that is a good 6 degrees above average for the time of year. Now, as we get towards the end of the week, we're looking more like 9 degrees. So shave off 10 degrees, it's going to feel a lot colder. What's going on? Well, we're going to start to pull down a northerly Arctic air mass. So we're talking about the risk of overnight frosts into Friday. You're going to feel that cold air coming through. It will return slightly milder, though, as we head into next week. But yes, certainly into this weekend, it's going to feel a lot colder. Not tonight, though. It remains mild. Plenty of fine weather to end the day. As we go overnight tonight, we start to pull up this band of showery rain. Some of this is going to be really quite heavy. There'll be a lot of cloud with it as well. So mild conditions. Temperatures will drop down to around about 10 to 12 degrees as we head overnight. The breeze remains gentle. Now, we start tomorrow morning on the Isle of Man, Cumbria, Lancashire, cloudy outbreaks of rain. We start to get a clearance, though, from the south. So cloud will start to break up a little bit. As it does and the sun starts to work its magic, we'll get some showers triggered off. Now, some of these showers, as you see them, could be heavy, possibly with the odd rumble of thunder as well, and we'll see cloudier skies to end the day. Temperatures up to 15 or 16 degrees and the breeze remains gentle. Ex-Hurricane Kirk is what we're talking about. For us, it's really not going to do that much other than bring stronger winds as we head through Wednesday, and the reason why we start to pull down that more northerly air mass. So for Wednesday itself, it's going to be cloudy. There will be outbreaks of rain. You'll notice, though, the winds start to pick up. So a blustery end to the day with temperatures just starting to get a bit cooler and about 14 degrees. That's your forecast.
We could do a news story about the weather photo that took 40 years to get on the telly.
He's had it printed and it's in his, I think he said it's in his lounge. It's gorgeous.
Really?
I love it. 1984 and a slide. You'll remember those days.
Well, I remember it. How old were you then?
2.
Were you?
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Take care.